Are you sitting comfortably? Then we'll begin.
You're listening to the AFTN Soccer Show on CiTR Radio, broadcasting from the University of British Columbia from the unceded Musqueam Territory. You can listen to us on 101.9 FM or CiTR.ca online. I'm your host, Michael McCall.
Steve Pender.
Zachary Adam Eisenhower.
The second part of the show tonight, or I guess you could kind of say it's part 4 now, we're going to have a look at the recently announced 2026 World Cup bid. Big news this week, Steve. The World Cup bid was announced. 3 countries putting in for it. We've got America looking to host 60 games. Canada and Mexico getting 10 games each. Not what everyone was hoping for. When you heard the news and when you heard how it was going to be kind of broken down, what was your initial reaction? Obviously, it's now real. The bid is there. Was it excitement, indifference, disappointment? How did you feel when you heard that?
It's hard to describe. I was kind of expecting it, and I even was expecting Canada not to get too many games. I wasn't expecting them to get I didn't think at all it was going to be an even split. What actually surprised me the most was Mexico was only getting 10 games. That's kind of surprised me. I thought they would be able to get a lot more. But obviously, considering if you think of the Gold Cup and how America constantly gets all the games, every Gold Cup is always played in America. So that, in a way, it's kind of not surprising. But once it kind of settled in, I kind of did get excited for the chance to see a World Cup here. Even if it most likely is going to be a couple of group matches and maybe 1 or 2 quarterfinal matches or first round matches.
Not even quarterfinal. It's going to be like round of 16.
Round of 16. Sorry, I meant round of 16.
Whatever it's going to work out, like second round matches.
Yeah, so I
round of 125 or something.
I think most likely it's going to be, if you just take the 10 Canadian ones, I think it's going to be 3 Vancouver, 3 Montreal, 4 Toronto. I think that's probably how it's going to be split.
You have to look at, though, where they're going to play those games. I mean, does Montreal have... I mean, you've got the Olympic Stadium.
It's still 9 years away, so they can retrofit anything they need to retrofit at this point. And they've always been talking about possibly building a new stadium there. Maybe it comes in time for the World Cup. Maybe that's an incentive for them to build one by the World Cup.
I honestly think it was just going to be Toronto and Vancouver.
There's discussion in Montreal that they'd build a new stadium, I think, for...
Just for this?
No.
Other teams will play in there afterwards.
Yeah, the Alouettes, I think. It would be a new...
Even the Impact might.
It wouldn't be near where the Olympic Stadium is now. It would be more in the city.
Interesting.
But that's just what people are talking about.
When you get a World Cup like this, you're going to have a lot of places having incentive to build something.
Yeah.
Because they want to host some stuff.
Well, it's a cash cow. I mean, there's so much money that can be made from it, but it's also a lot of expense as well. I mean, you could ask the folk in Brazil... Was it worth it to spend all that money to have the world come and visit you, and then all these years later, and lose, and then have all these like white elephants that's just great stadiums that's just not getting used, and that's what we don't want to have here. And what was your first feeling, Zach, when you heard how the split was, the 60-10-10?
Yeah, it was definitely. I felt like we were not getting enough games. Definitely disappointed in the fact that we only get 10 out of 80 I think it's nice. It seems like a bit of a gesture on behalf of Mexico that they're willing to have the same number of games as us, even though the number is low.
I think, though, that the way that they've looked at it, they've hosted it twice. They hosted it in 70, they hosted it in 86.
Yeah.
I think the feeling was if they tried to go alone, they weren't going to get it.
I think America, they could have taken it themselves. Honestly, they could have hosted it themselves. But
it's interesting because we're going to have some audio from Don Garber just in a few minutes, and he kind of alludes to that he hadn't really heard anything about this triple bid, and this was in February. And reading between the lines of what he says, it does kind of seem that America wanted to maybe go on their own. Maybe the Trump administration made them have a second thought. Maybe there was pressure from Victor Montagliani as the new CONCACAF president, like, no, you're not going alone in this.
Yeah.
Or maybe both Mexico and Canada were going to do their own bid together or separate bids, and then it was going to split the vote. Something's happened to make America want to do this, because you follow or you read some of the comments that some American journalists have made online. It's like, yeah, no way are we going to share. And then all of a sudden they're sharing.
I think
sharing in inverted commas.
I think possibly it could be the 48 team format, the way that it might expand by then, because maybe they just don't have. Nope. I honestly, in the future, I don't think any country possibly will have enough facilities to host 48.
Yeah.
I think that everybody's going to need help.
You need a lot of infrastructure. I mean, America is made for it.
Maybe a country like Germany will obviously have the stadiums. England might have the stadiums. Spain, but there's not that many overall. I mean, maybe some South American countries too.
You're ruling it out going to Africa, for example. There's no African country that could host a 48-game tournament on its own.
No.
Yeah. And then now, this bid opens up Africa to have, a multi-country host in the future, or again.
Yeah, and we'll talk a bit about where we think the games might be held in a bit. One of the polls which we put out on Twitter tonight was, how are you feeling about the Three Amigos World Cup bid? That's what we're going to call it, the Three Amigos. And in first place was excited at 41%, 30% had mixed feelings, and then it was a tie. 14% are indifferent, 14% feel that Canada got shafted. I don't know that we can say that we got shafted, because
I don't think we will never get the.
No, if we went standalone and we went up against America, we would get votes from the people that don't like America. I just can't see how we could have possibly hosted a 48-team World Cup here.
Yeah, the 48-team thing makes it difficult.
Because I think it's 16 groups at that point, right?
It's 16 groups of three.
Yeah. So that would have made things more difficult to host. But when you're talking about, you don't know how we would have beaten America, I think politics are politics, right, Michael? And I think there's lots of ways to make that work.
Of course, the ironic thing is we could have gone standalone, we could have got it, or the World Cup's coming here in 2026, but the world won't exist then because we'll all have been killed in a nuclear war.
Possibly. That's anything.
By the time this podcast comes out, it's like there's a good chance that it could be over. We might not even make it to the end of the show.
But for the three hosts, I think all three teams will be able to make it. I think that with 48 teams, I think there should be no problem with that.
That was my next question to you guys. It's like, with the 48, it does make sense. All three should get in, but should they? America definitely, because they're hosting the bulk of it. But should Mexico and Canada both get in?
I think with 48 teams, I think it's no problem at that point. I think they have enough space where it's not going to they're going to have minnows anyways coming in at 48 teams. Canada. So why not have them as one of the hosts? So it's not a big deal.
Hey, Scotland might even make it.
No, I think we need 148 teams to kind of have a chance at the moment. One of the other poll question we put out on Twitter tonight was, would you accept Canada not getting automatic qualification if we got to host more games? Yes or no?
Oh, that's a tricky one.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, when it comes to these kind of things, obviously, my heart says hopefully we could qualify anyways, especially if it was 48 teams.
Well, if Mexico and America were both in, then you might have a good chance.
Yeah, and you still have four, and there's still four more spots supposedly, because there's going to be, I think, 6, right?
Yeah.
I would want to maybe take that gamble, but it's obviously that's hypothetical.
No,
it's not going to happen.
I don't think it's...
See, I would take... I'm not Canadian, so I would take that gamble.
Wait, I thought you're not Canadian yet?
I haven't applied.
Oh, okay.
If the Whitecaps win the MLS Cup, I will apply. If they'd won the Champions League, I was going to apply. But
Right.
Now, the one thing I like about the World Cup is
I like the Panini
positive
sticker albums.
The positive, one of the positive things I like about the World Cup is the fact that there is a kind of assuming that we get automatic automatic berth, that there is something to build towards.
Yes.
And you have, right now, I was thinking about it a couple of days ago that there will be players that are currently age 12 to maybe 21, 22 that are going to be on that World Cup team.
Yeah.
And because it's, like we said, it's 9 years away. And also, they might be able to recruit some players that are of dual nationality who are kind of like on the edge of one national team or the other, and they might push them towards Canada because they know that they're going to be able to go
guys.
Yeah, maybe more Scottish guys, exactly.
But that's a very good point. Realistically, there's going to be some kids in the Whitecaps residency program right now that's going to be playing in a World Cup in 9 years' time. And I mean, that's exciting. But just to give you the results of this poll, we've got 33% said yes, they would be happy for Canada not getting qualification if they hosted more games. But 67% said no, Canada has to be a host for this to work. And that kind of surprised me a little bit.
In terms of what this means or what this can mean for the program, the Canadian men's national team program, it's huge. This last year I read Raphael Honigstein's Das Reboot, which is the whole story of kind of how the 2014 German team was kind of built. And a huge part of that was in 2000 when Germany won the bid to host the 2006 World Cup. And they were like, wow, we are in decline. Our national team is in decline. We need to do something about this. And the DFB worked with the DFL and all the clubs, and they went through a massive emphasis on developing players. And it didn't culminate. It culminated in third place in 2006, culminated in, third place in 2010, and finally the ultimate result came in 2014 when all that investment paid off. And it is a huge opportunity for us. I think a huge. It'll help shape Jason DeVos's role with the CSA and what he's hoping to do and what he's looking to do, and will hopefully shape player development for our country for these next 9 years.
And we're going to play some audio now. Back in February, you may remember Don Garber was in Vancouver for a few meetings, and when he had the media round table, I asked him a couple of questions at that time about the potential World Cup bid. And obviously at that time we didn't know when it was going to get announced or what it was going to look like. So we'll play that audio for you now. And like I said, you can maybe read a couple of things in between the lines of this here, but let's hear now from MLS Commissioner Don Garber. There's been a lot of talk about 2026 World Cup could be in North America. If Canada and America decide to go for separate bids, would the league support one over the other?
I'm not going to comment about what decisions Canada or U.S. will make because I've never heard that before. I could assure you that the league will get behind any bid to bring the World Cup to the United States and Canada. We were very active in supporting the bid in bringing it to the U.S. in 2022, and we'll be very supportive of a bid to bring it to North America, whether that's a joint bid with the U.S., Canada, and Mexico, or it's a bid on its own in the U.S., or it's a bid on its own in Canada. We have 3 teams up here.
When you look at the way that the game's developed here since the last World Cup in '94, MLS didn't exist at that point as an actual entity. How do you see the game having grown since that time?
I mean, it's grown in just massively since '94, and as I have spoken to Victor Monteglani about, a World Cup coming to North America could help the growth of the sport immeasurably here in Canada. Our teams would get behind it. Whatever iteration is of this new professional league will get behind it, and ultimately you'll be able to capitalize on the global excitement and energy of the world's most popular sporting event. And when it leaves, we're here, building a fan base, building a commercial business, building the importance of our league or leagues, or building the importance of the sport. You saw that with what happened with the Women's World Cup and the energy left behind for women's soccer. You had 22,000 people at a game here just the other day. I came into the league in '99. We had 10 teams. The league operated 3 of them. So we had owners operating 7 teams. And in 2022, we'll have 28 teams. And those 7 owners now have turned into 20 owners. And no soccer stadiums. In the next 2 years, we'll have 20 soccer stadiums. I believe all of that energy started with the 1994 World Cup. And it just got people to get it. Most popular World Cup and successful World Cup in history was in '94, in terms of revenue, in terms of the number of fans, because of the size of the stadiums we have in the United States. If we could have a World Cup here in 2026, and I'm a supporter of the joint bid, I believe it will be fantastic. Now, the entire U.S. Soccer Board has not yet gotten entirely behind that joint bid because it's premature. But as the commissioner of Major League Soccer with teams in the U.S. and Canada, I think it would be terrific.
Zurich is staying. Zurich is staying. Zurich is staying. Zurich is staying.
MLS Commissioner there, Don Garber, playing out with a great song by Prolapse called Zurich is Stained. Nothing to do with FIFA, but it just seemed very, very fitting. The world will be coming to Vancouver in 2026, hopefully. We don't want to count our chickens either that the bid is guaranteed, but all the indications is it was going to be held by the CONCACAF region, so if we're going to be the bid, then it does look pretty good. I asked Don Garber there how he sees the game having changed in America after 1994. Now, I don't know, did either of you guys manage to make it to any games in 94?
No.
No, I was drinking too much. It's my graduation year.
Yeah, I was only 15. I had friends of my close family friends went down and saw Italy play in New York. This is another side of this, though, actually, that I've seen some people talk about on Twitter. I forget who it was, but like, it's not just about the games. It's not just about having the tournament here. One of the great things, and I was too young to take advantage of this, is that in '94, being the neighbor of the host country, Canada played
Brazil.
They played Brazil in Edmonton. They played Germany and Holland at Varsity Stadium in Toronto. I went to the Germany game. That was the first real football game I ever went to, or that I remember going to. And then there was games in Montreal. I want to say like Spain or Morocco, or I can't remember who it was. There was 2 games in Montreal. So again, we might only get 2 or 3 host cities, but there will hopefully be opportunity for some of these countries that will wanting to acclimatize themselves to the North American continent, that will come here and set up camp a month, 2-3 weeks ahead of time, and then they can play a game in Winnipeg.
Yeah, there's probably going to be some fantastic exhibition games for folk to go and take, and I hadn't even thought of that. I mean, that's a great thing.
Yeah,
I mean, there will be camps. I went down to, well, I didn't go down because I wasn't living here. I flew over.
It was Detroit, right?
Yeah, I flew to Toronto. Toronto was the first place I'd ever been outside of the UK. And then we drove from Toronto down to Detroit, saw 3 games there. It was an excellent experience. Survived. Discovered that there's only something like 4 taxi cabs outside the Silverdome, and we took about 2 hours to try and get a taxi home. 4 pasty Scottish guys standing me in my East Fife top, bright yellow, dying in the heat. And this guy pulls up and he's like, "Oh, do you guys want a ride?" I'm like, "Yeah, okay." So we all piled in. Then he took us to what would be best described as a project area, and we thought, we're going to die. but he just went to tell his wife he was giving these 4 Scottish guys a ride, so it all worked out good.
Excellent.
Unless I died and this is some kind of alternative reality. I've got a radio show, there's every chance it could be. But I want to read you some responses we kind of had on Twitter to this. And I think excitement will start to grow. I think it really is kind of growing already. Actually, before we get to the tweets, how did you see... I mean, we kind of talked about there's got to be guys in the residency programme just now that could be playing in this. But for the players, someone like Ben McKendry, somebody like Caden Chung, these guys that's in the pro ranks just now, how exciting must it be for them to know that if they can make it, they've got a World Cup on home soil and they've got a great chance of being part of it.
It's massive. It's huge.
I can't imagine how excited they are, and I'm hoping it doesn't it motivates them to become even better players, and that's what we're talking about.
Totally.
Something to play for.
And I think we've already seen an example of this a little bit with the women U19, the men's U20, and then the women's U20 and the women's full World Cup. You saw how. I think you saw the excitement in the players that were part of things. I think you saw some disappointment from players who didn't make it into that squad for the women's team. But it was a huge thing for them.
Yeah, to miss out on that must have been heartbreaking for some of the women. Reading some of the tweets here, Greg Petrie at Our Dumb World said that Canada hosting in 2026 will be perfect timing. A great lead up to the Canadian Premier League finally getting started in 2027. I thought that deserved a laugh there, but obviously...
I think it'll be sooner than that. Maybe, like you said, the World Cup might be able to get that Canadian Premier League happening sooner.
Well, the word on the Canadian League is that the announcement's coming May 12th or whatever.
Well, we're going to talk about that soon. Yeah. Greg Petrie followed that up by saying he'd have liked a few more games, but he's not outraged by the number. I think the CSA should really push to host the opener, though.
Yeah, those. I mean,
if we're only getting 10 games, having the opener would be fantastic.
Yeah, because Mexico's had 2, the States has had 1, the States is hosting the final. That would make sense.
Not going to happen. USA will be hosting the opener of the World Cup.
I'd like to see. I don't know. I mean,
they'll have the first maybe we get the first game on the second day, but that first game will be in America, like the one where it's the single game.
I hope not. I'd love to see it here. I'd love to see it in Vancouver. I mean, it's just. They can bill it as the place that hosted the World Cup final for the women, is also the place that had the first game here as well. Murray Lynn on Twitter says that Canada and Mexico got shafted. Make it 20-40-20 and then it works. And some of those 20 should be in the knockout phase. It is very disappointing that quarterfinals onwards, it's all in the States. You'd think they would at least have... I mean, you've got one of the... Everyone that's going to host it, the most iconic stadium from the 3 countries, the Azteca.
Yeah.
And they're not going to host anything from quarterfinals on. That's ridiculous.
It's a bit sad. Yeah, you would have thought they would have got a semi there.
I mean, if we host the opening game here or get a
I would have a
game,
semi.
I'd have a semi.
Yeah, we're on the same same wavelength there.
It was so... I don't know if Zach was throwing that out for us.
Semi-final.
Oh, you didn't actually mean that. Like, in all seriousness, though, the Aztecas should host the opening game or the final. To me, that's the iconic stadium. That's the one that should host it.
No, but that's not not how it works, right? Like you look at.
Oh, I know, because Zurich is stained.
No, yeah, of course, but you look at places where they've hosted twice. Like for example, Germany, where they hosted in '74. It was West Germany. The final was in Munich. This time, there was no way the final was going to be in Munich. It was going to be in Berlin, right, to change things up. I don't think the final should be at Azteca for sure. Just like there's lots of talk that the final won't be like back at the Rose Bowl in Pasadena for the States this time. It'll probably be like at MetLife in New York or whatever.
I don't know. Dallas was getting mentioned by, I can't remember if it was SB Nation or something.
Because it's so big.
Yeah, they wrote a piece basically saying where they thought the games were going to be played, and they didn't have CenturyLink on it at all. Which the fact that they played Copa games there, it's pretty obvious that they are going to play that.
The thing is about Seattle is that they mentioned in the press conference, I think Seattle and Vancouver were one of the first, like when they were saying like they're going to match teams, match cities up. I agree that I think it could be Dallas only because number one, it's probably the biggest stadium they have in America. I think you could get about 100,000 there. Plus, it's very close to Mexico, so you will have that. A lot of people from Mexico actually bus up in order to watch Dallas Cowboy games. So I
it's
don't see
full
that.
of Mexicans in
Now,
it.
if the
Well,
wall
just now.
Now, if the wall's up by then, I don't know if that's going to happen. But for now, I think it's probably most likely. I think it'll be Dallas. It'll be
final?
Yeah, I think Dallas.
No.
I would put money on Dallas.
Yeah,
Just because of the size of the stadium.
Yeah.
Yeah, size of stadium, just the iconic look of
Gigantic
it.
screen.
It's
Yeah.
it's got to be in New York. The last one was in LA. This one's going to be New York.
I don't see it.
Well, then, yeah, okay.
Just an opinion. It all depend on how nice that New York City FC stadium is going to be. If that looks like a great stadium, because they'll probably play it in there.
No.
Where do you think they'll
It's
play?
going to be, well, technically not New York. It's going to be the MetLife. It's going to be where the Giants play.
Oh, yeah, maybe.
Last
but
tweet-
I don't. That's not very. That stadium doesn't have anything to it.
Yeah, New York,
It's a-
I guess, has got the iconic thing as
It's
well.
like-
though.
yeah.
It's only the city, but I think overall, I think Dallas fits what they're looking for.
The heat, though.
Yeah.
It's
Oh,
like, I mean,
believe me,
everyone's
heat
going
in-
on about
heat-
Qatar, but
Heat in New York is very hot in the,
Yeah.
in the summertime.
It's humid,
so,
yeah, humid.
last tweet we'll read, and then we'll move on from this. J_Duke, he may have left, but he's tweeting us, which is fantastic. Obviously, listening to this in the car, pulled over clearly to send
Yeah.
this. He says that the reality is for Canada, it was either 10 games or none at all.
I agree
And
with that.
I think we kind of have to agree with that. So that's our chat about the 2026 World Cup for now. We've got a little bit still to do tonight, so thank you for staying with us. If you're listening to this in the podcast, this is going to be podcast 189. And it's time now for our wavelength section of the show. And we're returning to the band that kicked all this off in CiTR, the Sultans of Ping FC, and their 1993 debut album, Casual Sex in the Cineplex. We thought it's 1 a.m. What better time to bring you a song about football, philosophers, educated women, and sadomasochism, sex in the bedroom. This is Kick Me with Your Leather Boots.
If the lighter was true, then it wouldn't be a lie. When you told your best friend Gwendolyn I was your only guy. Your sophistication makes me feel so paranoid. Kick me with your leather boots, the way that I enjoy. Please, my dear, kick me with your leather boots. I'm sincere. Kick me with your leather boots. Please, my dear, kick me with your leather boots. I'm sincere. Kick me with your leather boots. Socrates and Schopenhauer are really very nice. Told you bad on delays and you said it round twice. Your sonic soul and conscience has me running round the bend. Kick me with your leather boots. Kick me hard again. Please, my dear, kick me with your leather boots. I'm sincere. Kick me with your leather boots. Please, my dear, kick me with your leather boots. I'm sincere. Kick me with your leather boots. You took me to your bedroom and I got such a thrill. It was like a sequel to The Boys from Brazil. When we wear our leather boots, you're so unashamed. Your smashing left for volley sends a flood from my brain. You say Dostoevsky was the greatest of them all. In mapping and putting out compatible control. Your stunning social conscience has me running up the wall. Kick me with your leather boots. Kick me till I fall. Please, my dear, kick me with your leather boots. I'm sincere. Kick me with your leather boots. Please, my dear, kick me with your leather boots. I'm sincere. Kick me with your leather boots. La 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 la. La 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 la. La 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 la. La 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 la. I'm aware that listening is a function of the mind. Funny Phoenix Mendelssohn is well before my time. Your sonic social conscience has me now the insane. Kick me with your leather boots. Kick me in the brain. Please, my dear, kick me with your leather boots. I'm sincere. Kick me with your leather boots. Please, my dear, kick me with your leather boots. I'm sincere. Kick me with your leather boots. You took me to your bedroom and I got such a thrill. It was like a sequel to The Push from Brazil. When we wear our leather
Sultans of Ping FC there with Kick Me With Your Leather Boots. Where else on Vancouver radio, or any radio really, are you going to hear a song mentioning Osvaldo Ardiles, Poland's famous Boniek, and philosophers Dostoevsky and Felix Mendelssohn? Only on the AFTN Soccer Show. That was a song there about, you know what it's like, you meet a girl, you hit it off, but you don't have that much in common. She's into philosophy and arty things and intelligent things. You're into football, but you've got the love of sadomasochism, and that was Kick Me With Your Leather Boots. So, what better way to move on from sadomasochism in the bedroom than to talk to our friends at TSS FC Rovers? Colin Elmes, Will Cromack. We mentioned just before the ads and the music there about the impact that the World Cup is going to have on Canadian football. Something which people are hoping is going to have an impact on Canadian football long before that is the Canadian Premier League. And we're going to talk a little bit about that just to wrap up the show. Right now, TSS FC Rovers are going into their first PDL season. One of a number of Canadian clubs. In their conference is going to be Victoria Highlanders and Calgary Foothills as well. Had a chat with Will and Colin a couple of weeks ago now, and we're going to bring you some more over the next couple of weeks in the show. But I want to play you a bit where we talked about why they picked to go into PDL just now, not wait to see what was maybe going to come from the Canadian Premier League or the BC Soccer Division 3 tier league, and do they hold out hopes for possibly going into the Canadian Premier League down the line? So let's hear now from TSFC FC Rovers, Colin Elmes and Will Cromack. If you're looking at the future, you've got Canadian Premier League might be starting next year. Then you've got the BC Soccer's Tier 3 league that they're kind of looking to kind of mirror League One and the Quebec one. Where do you see TSS fitting into that? Do you have any interest in the future of being part of one of those? Or are you happy just to do PDL for a while?
I think, in our discussions along the way and our sanctioning, at least the verbal discussions, we've kind of said, hey, look, we get that our country needs to build a structure that's more appropriate to allow us to move our world ranking up.
Yeah.
But at the same time, time was now. I did not, when we started talking PDL, I didn't want, we kind of knew that there was a possibility that this League One concept was going to stretch itself across the country. But the reality is I just can't wait.
Yeah.
This opportunity came up, but saying that, we've expressed, and again, we've stepped into a league, Mike, that I think it might be over 20 years old. It's been running successfully. It's placed umpteen players into MLS and USL environments over the years. It has cachet. Like TSS Rovers are playing Sounders and Timbers.
Yeah.
Like that's pretty cool. So yeah, would we be interested in the future if this Tier 3 league was viable and it was running well? Of course, we would consider that. We've made a fairly significant financial commitment to the PDL and a time commitment. We're committed for 3 years.
Okay.
So circumstances may dictate what happens moving forward that way. But without a doubt, we'd have to sit and think about whether or not it made sense. Certainly, our stance on being 100% Canadian, I think, is if you're, some people say, oh, you're in an American maintain our stance on 100% Canadian. So we've taken a very unique kind of approach to this, even though the league is a U.S.-based entity. But if circumstances dictate moving forward in 3+ years, that it makes sense for TSS Rovers to be in a different environment, we'll consider that. But
I'd also say this, Mike. This is what a lot of people talk about in the world. To say, I want to do this, I want to do that, I'm going to do this, I'm going to get fit, I'm going to, not do that this year, and they end up talking a lot. And at the very, very least, you're talking to two guys who take the step, which ultimately puts a bullet on, a bullseye on your back because you're doing something.
Yeah.
So in the end, whether you show up and all of a sudden you're at St. George's and you're coaching kids, that allows someone to come to you and go, "Hey, mate, I got an opportunity for you called a tennis center. Do you want to come in?" Without having jumped, you never have the opportunity to get sports down. Without jumping and saying, "This is what we're doing. Everybody's been talking about something around this country, and we know it because we're old, and we've been in and around it forever at all levels." Once the CSL went, it's been talk ever since. And you got to commend the Whitecaps. You got to commend Saputo, Kerfoot, TFC. They put something together. Edmonton, Ottawa, they put something together that's local.
Yeah.
And what we're saying is we want to be in that mix. We want to be in the mix of people who've said, we'll do something and we'll put our money where our mouth is. Now, if they say come what I would consider down to RT3, great. But what if someone said to us, "Hey, listen, we love your product. We'll bring the millions for you to go into the CPL." Hey, okay, we've got something to show you. We've got something, we made a website. We've got players. We've got an opportunity. We'd have a listen. But I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm just saying without taking a step or something and really believing in it and actually saying we want to try and be a solution, then nothing's ever going to happen. So, hey, man, go crazy, RT3. Let's get more people playing, more opportunities. But we're going to be playing the Timbers, and we're going to be playing the Sounders. We're going to have marquee exhibition games, and we're not worried. We're just stoked if everybody's playing. Let's get soccer better.
Well, here's an interesting one for you then. If Canadian soccer expands, there's loads of players. I mean, you just have to look VMSL, Fraser Valley League. There's hundreds of guys playing soccer at different levels of ability every weekend. If you're looking at developing a Canadian Premier League, whether it's 8, 10, 12 teams, you're going to have Division 3 leagues in BC and Ontario and Quebec, PDL teams like yourself in Calgary and Victoria. Do you feel that the player pool of decent enough talent exists in Canada to make those products make the public think, yeah, we're going to go and support this? Because VMSL doesn't get many folk out watching because it's not top quality.
Horrible for the first 5 years, maybe 10, but it would clean up like a pathway, and ultimately, whatever that top CPL level would need to be financed, and there's lots of conversations about how that does. We have to be financed for a while, but it would clean up. It would start to get better because environments would be there to play. It was true of the CSL. It was true of the way the NASL had to have North American players on the field. Ultimately, if we look from, again, Colin's 10,000-foot view, the North America and Canada in particular are like the Wild West. Leagues here, everywhere, shaping all down. I mean, you just start to move things out and put things in their right place. But the talent's clearly, on the male side, not anywhere near there to be able to fill them all out. But it would at least allow people to go to the appropriate level that they were at and feed the system in a recognized manner, i.e., our Div 1, which would be of the level of, say, Div 3 or 4 elsewhere in the world, would slowly but surely become the Div, a quality level of Div 3, a quality level of Div 4, but everything would fall in line where VMSL-type players would end up being your conference.
Yeah, and Mike,
Yeah.
as we know, just looking around us, we just fell out of another World Cup 2 years in advance of the actual tournament happening.
Yeah.
We can't keep just doing what we do, right? And you groups, particularly owners that are going to pay players, we're not in that realm, but those people, if this thing gets off the ground, and I hope it does for the sake of our football environment, they're sticking their necks way out.
Yeah.
And as Willie said, there has to be some kind of federation buy-in, kind of like, to be honest, I know these teams are going to have owners, but kind of like what happens, all these local clubs, some of them get upwards of $200,000 in gaming grants, to help them run their club environment. There needs to be some kind of government buy-in. You look at, everybody kind of moans about where Australia was at football-wise back in the day, and now, look where they are. Well, it's because the government spent a huge amount of money. They took the game seriously. So, yeah, I think while this is going on, while these billionaire, millionaire people are about to stick their necks out, I think from a sporting model perspective, our federal government and probably our provincial governments are going to need to step up here and help to make this thing work, right? They help build friggin' stadiums, for crying out loud.
Yeah.
Right.
Why?
And then that'll just clean itself. That'll just clean itself up as well. So the bottom line is we need to be successful in terms of what we've proposed and what we're doing, and financially and all those things. And in the end, that allows people, from Mike McCall to the CSA president, to walk up and say, we like what you're doing. We see it in this area, or we'll pair you with this person, or this works. Would you be able to move your club here, there, or anywhere? Well, we have a commitment for 3 years, and we're going to stick with it. And those conversations can exist if you're successful and you have credibility and authenticity, and people are following you.
We're just coming to the end of hour 2 of the show. Actually, I think we might have gone into... No, we're coming to the end of hour 2.
Extra time?
Yeah, so for the next couple of hours, what we've got lined up for you... I mean, it's Easter. Let's just keep going until the cheap Easter eggs are out.
I think we might go longer than the Ten Commandments movie.
Oh,
that
possibly.
comes on every Easter.
I was going to go down a whole 10 Commandments routine, but that might take us a while. We got a message from friend of the show, Harjeet Jahal, who wants to know what that music was about. She's not a fan of leather boots, apparently. So we'll try and pick something that she likes for the next show.
Another dirge.
Well, I'm not on the next show, so there's a plus for everyone that's listening. So just before the ads there, we heard from Colin Elmes and Will Cromack from TSS Rovers. Obviously, we're really looking forward to the season to come. AFTN's official media partners of TSS Rovers. Myself and Gideon Hill are going to be doing the commentary for the home matches as well, so we're looking forward to that. First game kicks off at home, Swangard, Friday, May 12th. Lane United. Looking forward to it. The big question, and it's going to kind of tie in with, we're going to do a little bit of chat about Canadian Premier League, is the appetite of the local soccer fans, the market here, is it there to support a team like TSS Rovers? When you're listening to folks' comments on Twitter, social media, everyone's saying that they're doing the right thing. They love all the things they're doing. They love their kit. They love their fun social media, self-deprecating humour. Is that enough to get people, though, to buy season tickets to come out to the matches? They would love to have 4-figure crowds at Swangard. I'd love to see that as well. I'm just a little bit sceptical. I know you'll find that hard to believe that I'm sceptical or pessimistic about stuff, but I just don't know that the demand is there, not just for a PDL team like TSS Rovers, but for other clubs in big municipalities where there's other things to go to for non-top flight football.
Yeah, which is one of the reasons why the Whitecaps didn't want to pay for a PDL team when they got a USL team.
Yeah,
they were, the PDL was free, there was no admission to get into it back in the day, and when they decided to invest in a USL side, they said they no longer wanted to invest in a PDL side because of the financial commitment to it.
and I mean the good thing about TSS FC Rovers, they've got 6 residency alumni and a host of other players on the team that have been with the Whitecaps residency programme at various times of their career, prospects, guys that were maybe cut when they were 15. Great example of that is Zach Verhoeven, who first-year student at UBC this last term, 7 assists, 5 goals, led the team in assists. He was cut by the Whitecaps at the age of 15. Didn't make it into the under-16 or the under-18 team, went back to Surrey United. He is now one of the hottest prospects on the Thunderbirds team. He's been flying training from what Colin's told me. And this is a chance for these guys. And a guy like Tim Hickson that the Whitecaps didn't pick up to come back and show that they can make it. It's another pathway, and that's what's important for Canadian soccer.
On Friday, we were talking about how significant the opportunity for first-team Whitecaps players. They need to take both hands and grasp the opportunities they're given when they're playing the USL. Well, here I think you're going to see a lot of hungry guys, because they have been rejected by or bounced out of the monopoly that the Whitecaps have had on football from the, let's say, I guess the PDL level and up over the years. And now they have an opportunity to show that they are good enough, or that they do have something to contribute, or that they do still have potential. And so, And
it also shows as well that even if the Whitecaps don't pick you up or if they cut you, that's not the end.
Exactly.
No, and there's another pathway. And some players are late developers. They're not. They need to work on their craft. It's not just they're going to show it at 14, 15.
Yeah.
They got to need to show it. They need a place to go. And if they can, whether it's the Canadian PL or what they have right now, the TSS Rovers, if there's one or two players that can take that next step and become a national team player eventually, whether it's at 23, 24, 25, they become that player, that's going to be a benefit to everybody. Not only to that player, to the national team, to TSS Rovers, because they're going to have to say, look, we developed this guy and he's now a national team player. And so it's going to be it's going to be growing pains for everything, whether it's the PL or the TSS Rovers. They've admitted themselves that it's not going to be easy initially. But
in the first couple of years for the Canadian Premier League is going to be tough.
Oh, yeah.
But
you have to put that legwork in there in order to see what can happen. You can't expect everything to jump off the butt.
You have to hope, though, that the fans and the media do have the long-term view. I want nothing more for the Canadian Premier League to succeed. Mm-hmm. But realistically, I don't think it is going to be what a number of the really enthusiastic supporters of it think it is going to be. They're talking, it's Div 1 level, it's going to challenge MLS. Players, their first choice is, if they want to stay in North America, they're going to want to be in MLS. Then they'll pick NASL. Then there'll be USL teams in the States that's going to be offering good money. There's been some Canadian guys that were training this off-season. Cam Hundle was one of them. He was in Arizona. They've just got Drogba. So it's like...
So you're saying Cam will be behind?
I think he could be behind.
And Omar Bravo.
Yeah,
and
he could
Sean
be
Wright
behind.
Phillips.
He could be behind those. He didn't make the roster. I'm not sure why.
Is he going to be an owner one day? Or?
Could be.
Okay.
But I mean, that's the first choice for these guys. There's going to be some, like, Canadian Premier League is ideal for maybe somebody like a Jackson Farmer. He had his go with the Whitecaps. It didn't work out. If he wanted to stay in Canada, Canadian Premier League's the option for him. But so many of these guys want to go to Europe, and they would rather be playing Div 3, Div 4 Germany than perceived Div 1 in Canada, which is realistically going to be Div 3 in North America.
Well, that's what Levere Corbinong did, right? He got cut by the Whitecaps. He went and trialed a number of places in Europe. His first place he signed was 5th Division in Germany, and now he's slowly moving his way up, has his first cap for the national team.
If you have the talent and you go over there, I mean, Jay Demerit's like your typical kind of story. And he came through the PDL setup, and he is an advisor for TSS FC Rovers.
Totally, yeah.
And he went over, he was playing non-league, and if you've got the quality, you've got more chance of then being noticed and making it because there's way more opportunities. Do you see that the quality is there to sustain in the first couple of years a top quality Canadian PL that isn't going to make the league look like a joke?
See, it's difficult because they're trying to do something. They're trying to build the top and not build the bottom. And really, I think for this to be ultimately successful in the way everyone wants is you need to build from the grassroots up. But no one has the time or the money to do that. Yeah. So they're trying to build top down, sort of. And that's where it kind of you see the potential for it not to be as successful as everyone wants it to be.
Yeah.
I
just feel folk are overestimating what this can deliver in the early years anyway. Folk think it's going to rival MLS.
No, it's not going to rival MLS, but I think that the benefit might be that, how you're saying it's not enough quality. Maybe that's a good thing in the way that the defenders are not going to be as great. There's going to be mistakes. Mistakes lead to goals. Goals lead to people cheering. So it might be a thing where
mistakes lead to development as well.
Yeah. So
I'm going to remind you said that.
so basically, it could be that it becomes a more exciting league. I'm not saying it's because we watched in the past provincial cup games, which is coming up as well. We've watched games like that, and some of their games are very entertaining.
I mean, I've watched so many VMSL games over the last 8 months, and the quality's there.
Yeah,
but it's not MLS NASL style quality.
Oh, and you can't expect that. That's the thing.
Folk are expecting.
You got to set expectations.
And if you have a TV deal,
yeah,
folks going to be watching those games and just going, "This is ridiculous. This is not quality football." I'm used to watching Man United Chelsea on a Sunday morning. Why am I going to watch Saskatoon Halifax?
So you're suggesting to maybe play behind closed doors then?
No,
for the first 2 years.
I hear
all for that.
I hear what you're saying, and that it's going to be interesting to see how they talk about the league and make that a reality. Because you're right, they can't totally spin the marketing side of this, right? They can't just spin it to be like this is going to be something that it isn't, because you're right, they'll lose they might not lose the people, the supporters who are going to be there no matter what, but there is a high potential for them to lose the fan who will come and check things out once and then, or watch it once on TV and then be like, okay, I can see better if I go watch a VMSL game or whatever. So it's how they manage those expectations. I do think one of the things that's important, and this is both for the Canadian League and for TSS Rovers in the Lower Mainland, is we've seen, and we talked about this earlier, about some of the frustrations around the Whitecaps, some of the way they've chosen to do things, or the way they've treated certain people or certain situations, and how that's frustrated people and how that's turned people off to the point of no longer having season tickets, or there's lots of people who have season tickets who are really open to something else. Is that number significant enough? We don't know yet.
I don't know, but I have met so many folk, as I said in a previous show, that have given up season tickets. It's kind of incredible.
And some of them, or a number of them, have already gotten their season tickets for TSS Rovers because they want to go to live football. They want to support live football. They want to be part of something, and that's where you got to give Willie and Colin a lot of credit, because the way they're talking about things, I think one is hitting a note that's genuine, and two, it's making people feel like they are a part of something. Whereas the Whitecaps don't make you feel like you're a part of anything. It's more just a business that you're connected to. They're trying to build a community.
There is a danger that the Canadian Premier League could go down that way, because they're basing a lot of it on the MLS model. What I do like is that it's going to bring professional football to markets in Canada that it doesn't exist just now,
right.
Like Halifax. The plans for Halifax, apart from the fact that they're going to build a stadium with no roof, which I just do not think is a great idea, but their overall plans, how they've launched it there, the buy-in that they've got from the community is fantastic, because folk want to watch professional sport in Halifax. They will come out in numbers. That's the kind of fans that will come out in numbers. If there's a team in Saskatoon, you're likely to get fans coming out in numbers.
Or Regina, yeah.
We just have to write or do something with Brett Levis on the podcast or on the website, and it's like the numbers are huge because folk are fascinated, and a guy from Saskatchewan has gone and made it into the pro ranks. So those kind of things, something in Manitoba, those are the markets that fans will come out. But ultimately, the league's going to want to have teams in Montreal area, Toronto area, Hamilton's obviously Greater Toronto area, in Vancouver. Do you see, or would you like to see, a Canadian Premier League team in the Lower Mainland? I'm not saying just Vancouver, looking at the Valley. A, do you think it will happen? B, would you like to see it happen?
I think. Go ahead, Steve.
I think it will happen. I don't think it should be in the Lower Mainland. I know Swangard is an optimum place to play, possibly because of the location, because it's so centrally located. You got SkyTrain not too far away. But I think maybe playing a little bit out there, maybe in the Fraser Valley.
Why are you pointing at me?
No, not. I'm actually pointing towards Fraser Valley. You're out there. No,
that's the ocean over there, Steve.
Like a city like I know I live in Surrey. A city in Surrey might be a good option to put if they build a stadium put a team there that can draw maybe 4,000 or 5,000, maybe even further out. Maybe Langley would be a good option.
Surrey Gangbangers, there's your team name.
Maybe I'm going to leave that alone. Maybe a team like all the way in Abbotsford or Cloverdale or Chilliwack. I don't know. I don't think it's going to work too well. Going right up against the Whitecaps.
Well, the thing is, like the Fraser Valley Soccer League is attracting more and more talent. VMSL is still the number one league in the Lower Mainland by a mile, and that's where the teams want to play, or where the good players want to play. But as the house prices go up in Vancouver, more and more families are moving out to the Valley. So you've got that market that they don't want to come into Vancouver. They don't want to spend money to bring your family to a game in Vancouver and travel hours to get there as well. So there is that market there. I just don't see it working to make money. If the owners are happy for it to be a loss maker, that's fine. A name to throw out there, the Aquilini brothers. They were obviously interested in possibly having some input or a rival MLS team or doing a bid. So, I mean, they've shown an interest in football before. Would they want to come in maybe and have a team?
They're actually looking to there were rumors that they want to buy the Lions, the BC Lions.
Really?
So they maybe they are a team that people that want to do.
That might eat up a lot of their things, but then they'd have all the sports if they went for a soccer team as well.
Well, to answer your original question, yeah, I think to both the questions, my answer would be yes. I definitely would want a Canadian League team in the Lower Mainland, and I think it will. I think it can work. And I think the Whitecaps have a monopoly here, and I think that needs to be broken up.
But the problem is, I don't think people aren't going to break it up. They've already seen the Whitecaps play. They've seen them play against top competition, top players. And I don't.
They will soon be a top 25 club in the world.
I don't think they will. I don't think they will go. And the casual fan especially will not go and see a team that's in this area play in a lower league. They're going to consider it a lower league, and they're not going to watch it. So the casual fan,
I think that's the issue in Toronto as well.
Toronto I see a little differently because they have a way bigger
I don't
fan
know.
base.
Like no one goes out to watch TFC2 games. Montreal, even less folk were going out to that. They had like double-digit crowds in USL last season.
Yeah, but Montreal was also playing basically their residency program.
Yeah.
But and that's and then they didn't want to pay anymore. But
I mean, the last thing we'll talk about this, and then we'll just wrap this show up, is there's been so much speculation and very little fact so far about what this league is going to look like. Now, you mentioned that you think there's going to be an announcement in May.
Well, the talk is that the next Board of Governors meetings for the CSA is in May. I think it's around that May 12th. And or that weekend or whatever, and that there's expected to be an announcement then. This is, of course, not the first time that people have been expecting an announcement in regards to this, which is partly concerning, but partly also like at least if things aren't ready, at least they're not making announcements of, this is what we hope is going to happen. But
for this next meeting, will we have Jason DeVos and Kara Lang tweeting out stuff that's happening in the meeting?
Yeah.
Or will we be able to know what's going on?
I have no idea.
That was interesting. I remember that a couple years ago.
Yeah, I'm not sure if this is the same kind of meeting. But
yeah.
It's exciting times anyway for Canadian soccer.
Totally.
Between the World Cup bid, PDL teams doing well, Canadian Premier League, and it's exciting. And
you think we need a league. Canada needs a league, right?
But we have leagues here.
Canada needs its own league.
As a national league. I disagree.
It works if it's regional. And then eventually they play in a national championship.
Because just of the cost, the size of the country, how much it costs to go coast to coast, as we've talked about before. I think I said on a previous show, I want to go and explore Newfoundland and Labrador. I can fly back to Scotland via London for cheaper than it costs for me to fly there.
I don't know if this would work with the Canadian PL or how it is, but when this originally came up, my idea was having it like the junior league, the Canadian Hockey League, where they have a Western League. Basically, Saskatchewan, Manitoba,
that
and
makes
West.
So much sense.
Ontario has its own league. Quebec has,
like USL do with their East and Western conferences, and the teams.
And then eventually, at the end of the year, they come together in a tournament and play. The 4 teams play a tournament.
All for that,
totally. Yeah. And so that before, when I was talking about they need to build it from the ground up, that's what I was referring to.
Okay.
That's how it. That's how it would be more
but
natural.
They are going top down.
Yeah,
and they're only starting, if the Halifax plans are to be believed, they're going to start next year in August, riding the World Cup wave. Folk are saying, which to me is like, you've just watched the best players in the world. Hey, here's a team in Halifax. I don't see how you ride that wave the same.
People said that about MLS too back in the day.
Yeah, and MLS was dreadful
in the
first few years. I went to an MLS game in 1997.
Yeah.
And looking back now, 20 years later, it's so different.
But they took the step, and that's maybe what they have to do, take a step to go to that
It's going to be growing pains. It's going to be tough. We'll bring you more coverage when we've got it.
There just has to be commitment.
I think for now, if there's anyone still listening to this live, we commend you. I know Har's listening because she just sent me a message. But
she's probably just getting in.
It's 1:40. We've been going 2.5 hours. I think this is our record.
Okay, so we're finishing this part, and then I'm going to do my solo audio history of supporter groups within Vancouver.
And then I've got a special New Wave and Punk show coming up at 4 a.m.
I thought we were doing a wrestling podcast.
Oh, that's at 5. Yeah.
Okay, sweet.
We've got to have an hour in between. Steve's wearing his Strong Style t-shirt, Nakamura. Anyway, thanks for listening, everyone. Just before we go, just let everyone know where they can find you online. We'll start with you, Zach.
Yeah, it's at Zachary AM on Twitter and part of the Movement Curva Collective.
You can find me on Twitter at Whitecaps Beat.
And don't forget the dearly departed Jay Duke, who's had to leave us. He's gone to a better place.
His bed.
Yeah. Well, I've heard it's better. You can follow him on Twitter at J_Duke. I'm Michael McCall. You can follow me on Twitter at AFTN Canada. Read our stuff away from the numbers, aftn.ca. We're going to bring you this podcast, this show, as 2 separate podcasts, number 188 and 189. The Whitecaps podcast will be out on Monday. The chat about the World Cup, Premier League, TSS, that will be out on Thursday. So watch for that in your RSS podcast feeds. Next weekend, I won't be here. I'll be in Portland. So it's going to be Steve, hopefully Zach, maybe a couple of special guests as well. We'll see what happens. Until then, thanks for listening. Take care. And mon the Caps.
Going to your first match is an experience you never forget. The atmosphere of what's going on around the pitch looks beautiful, and you always look and go, wow, I'd love to play here one day. If you get the bug, it's going to stay with you for life.